Hi, I'm Richard Seitz, alongside Angel Green, for another edition of Iterations, a video blog from Allen Interactions. Since we last talked with you, we have done a lot of traveling and talking to a bunch of people. We started off a couple of weeks ago at Fort Worth, the Mid-Cities ASTD chapter, talking about SAM. And then I headed up to Toronto to co-facilitate a SAM workshop with Michael Allen while you went to Fort Lauderdale.
That's right.
And presented to the
South Florida ASTD chapter.
And you were talking with King Gregson from AutoNation on the successes you had in our project we did with them last year.
Yeah, and while I was down there, we also started our next project and had a savvy start for our next project.
And which is really funny because, you know, we knew this was going to be the plan and we knew you were going to go down and do a savvy start, but it's just so amazing that every time we talk about SAM, it seems like the highest percentage of the time people ask us about, what is this savvy start?
Right.
You know, what is it for? And I really am excited to tell people because I think it's the way that you start a project is really dependent upon what you want it to end like. And I always try to say, start with performance, end with performance. You start with content, you're going to end with content. And so a savvy start really is a time for us to brainstorm, challenge ideas, and bring a bunch of people into the room and really start a project off from the learner performance versus these giant 3-ring binders of content.
Right.
Who was in the room with you in South Florida when you were doing your savvy?
That's a good question. So in the room with us, we had the key project leader who's going to be in charge of delivering this training event to the AutoNation group.
Mm-hmm.
We had a learner who's a high performer.
That's good.
Recent in the job. He's been there for about 6 months, is doing awesome in his job. We had 2 people flown in who are our subject matter experts, enthusiasts, to come back to that, one from all the way out in California and one from Colorado. And then periodically we would have the big stakeholders, the big wigs, come in and they would kind of look at what we were done to that point and see where we were at and give some feedback and input from their perspective, from the organizational perspective.
Which is really important, and I know that we really talk about having only the people necessary involved and around, and we're kind of tongue-in-cheek when we say that, because the reality is there's a lot of people in organizations that are necessary. Yeah. And senior leadership commission projects,
right.
They're usually the ones that set the direction for it, and you need to report back and involve them, because you know, I always like to say anybody that can say no should say it early.
Yes.
So you want to have them in the room so you can talk about that. But the other thing is that you can kind of get their thoughts and ideas and make sure that you're aware, you're discovering expectations, which is what I always talk about as being in a savvy start. And early on, we really try to discover expectations from everybody involved and as well as the organization. Right. So it's helpful to have them in there for that.
Yeah, we didn't want them coming down at the end and being the swoopers, as we like to call them, and saying, wait a minute, this is not organizationally where we need to be taking this training, and that by that point it's too late.
And the worst part of it is, even more difficult, is that we use sketches and prototypes for discussion and working towards design. And if people aren't prepared to see that, that can cause a lot of problems when you have stick figures and sketches on flip charts and whiteboards. So it's good to involve them early to say, hey, we're going to start the ball rolling this way, and then we're going to move into more concrete design, maybe like you're used to on a storyboard or some kind of specification document.
Right. And I think that part of the things that are different and unique about the Savvy Start, from an instructional design perspective at least, is that they might have existing content, and they did. You know, there was an existing training course that's out there, and they might have come into the room and said, here's the training course, but kind of push that over the side and really spend these 2 days talking about what does performance look like? Yeah. What is success in the position? What is failure in the position? Is this a realistic approach to training these people? Can they sit for that long? Do we need to chunk it up into different breaking points? You know, what does that event look like? Right,
and then we moved, like I said, using those discussions to sketches and sketches to prototypes. And it's first round, maybe second round prototypes, but it's really, you know, black and white stick figured, really just functional, not a lot of words, the blah, 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 yada, yada, yada's in there, just so you can kind of get the idea out. And again, you know, we really like to stress that these early prototypes are about discussion.
Yes.
You're really trying to generate some discussion about what we might be able to do for the interaction and for the scenarios.
Right. We had a couple of prototypes that just didn't quite work, and you know, we hadn't put lots of time into them, and the feelings weren't hurt, and they were thrown out.
Throw them away.
We had some initial prototypes and said, you know, what would really make this more meaningful to the learners is if we added an element here or there. And so we were able to make that change on the fly, show it to them again the next day, and say, you know, we made these modifications last night. What do you think? And it really hit home that this is exactly what it is that we're looking to do.
And it's the power of a prototype, that it's a bite-sized, simple, iterative moment that is disposable.
Right.
And a prototype is not disposable, it's not worthwhile. And same, the real struggle with storyboards. You put a lot of time and energy in that, and you're not willing to throw them away, then you can't really be critical and have discussions about it. So that's why we use prototypes so much. We'll get to the content later.
Yeah.
It's not a time for content.
No.
We may do an outline, we may do some sequencing of it,
Yeah.
but for the most part, it's going to be prototyping.
Right.
So Savvy Starts are a lot of fun, though.
They are a lot of fun. They are draining. They can be, it's brainstorming. You can bring up some organizational issues that you might not have known had existed, and it's time to have those kind of closed-door conversations, and let's just hash it out and figure out what is an organizational issue and what is an instructional issue, and what kind of problems can we solve that are learning problems. Really.
That we really focus on the target, and the target's that learner performance, and we try to hit that target as often as we can.
Yeah, and we also talk through metrics.
Right.
So what are we looking at now? And what does improvement mean? What does success mean for this project? What, if we change the mark, if we move the needle, what does that look like? And what kind of results are you expecting to see because of this? And then we can measure success.
Most definitely. So clearly you can see Savvy Starts are a lot of fun. Yes. They excite us, and we keep talking about them, and we would go on for way too long, much longer than we need for a video blog. Right. But thanks for your input, and excited that we're starting a new project with our friends at AutoNation.
Yes.
So I hope you'll comment on our blog and join us in a couple of weeks or so for our next edition of Iterations.
Bye-bye.